Zachary Allen, welcome to In the Pews.
Thank you. Thank you for having me, Rudy.
Well, thank you for having us here at Cathedral High School. Yeah. So it's like you're welcoming us, we're welcoming you, and you're the president here.
President, yeah.
Okay, not the principal, but the president.
That's right. Yeah. So we operate on the president-principal model.
How does that work?
Yeah, it's a great question and a pretty common one. So in private schools, a lot of times, maybe within the last 15 years, you'll see this breakdown of principal-president model.
Okay.
And where really you can break out the duties. So in a private school, you have to run the business side of the school where you fundraise and you think about hiring as far as the business side of operations. And then the principal really has their hands full with internal curriculum, students, families, working with the day-to-day. And a big part of Catholic education is looking out from the school to let other people know what you're doing so that they can then want to come in. And so to separate those duties is really helpful.
So what you do is kind of like at the district level for a public school.
Yeah, so in a public school, the school has a principal.
Yeah.
But the business office is located usually somewhere else. They might have an accountant at their campus, but it wouldn't be all of the business dealings. Yeah.
Okay, so that's your part. You're like more on an executive type style.
That's right, and it's really a close partnership. I would say any school that has this model that wants to be successful, they both have to work very close together because what's happening internally has to be properly communicated externally, so people know what they're getting when they come. So the president and the principal have to be in communication. We're fortunate here because our pastor, Father Huff, is also very involved. So. Yeah, we got a great team.
We interviewed his father.
Yeah, I saw that. Yeah.
A while back. Yeah, we've been trying to get Father Huff, but I understand he's just so busy.
He is. Yeah, he's very busy. So.
Now, I understand you did not grow up Catholic.
No, I did not. I actually grew up in East Texas in Lufkin, about 2 hours north of Houston. I grew up, on paper Methodist.
On paper?
On paper, yeah. So we, when I was younger, we did go to church pretty frequently. But as I got older, we, drifted away. We didn't attend that often, mainly because athletics really took over. I played a lot of baseball. So as we started doing tournaments and things like that on the weekend, there was no time for church.
So it kind of took a back seat.
Yeah, because if we were traveling or even if we were in town, we had games Saturday and Sunday. The Methodist church that we were attending, they did have church services, kind of a few on Sunday morning. But, when we traveled, our church wasn't there.
Yeah.
So we didn't go. That was that's how I grew up. Yeah.
So all throughout, high school, you played sports?
Yeah, so athletics was a huge part of my life. I loved basketball, loved baseball. I love the competition. I love the challenge. I also liked being successful. I think, my dad was really into athletics, and so we spent tons of time together. But then I would spend hours, just outside shooting baskets or playing. And we were fortunate to have a large backyard, which in East Texas isn't that random. But we had this thing called a pitchback. So I could throw into it and it'd bounce balls, so you could field grounders all day, if you wanted to. So I would do that for hours, depending on what time of the year it was what sport I was doing.
What positions did you play?
So growing up, I was real small, so I played second, pretty much all the way through, from, I guess I played, different in T-ball, but, basically from pitching machine on up, I played second base. And then in high school, I moved over short and then started pitching as well. So
pitching?
Yeah. And then actually, in college, I played third for the first time ever.
In college?
Yeah. So I played at SFA, but I really got a good experience there I didn't play a ton. I redshirted and then I sat behind a guy that ended up going and playing on the Royals for a while.
Wow.
So it was a really humbling experience. You kind of go through your whole life feeling really good at something, and you get to college and you're like, everybody's good, So
and you were like probably felt like you were one of the stars of the team, and then
growing up you can be, and then for me at least when I got to SFA, I was like, everybody here is good. I could complain for more playing time, but for what? Everybody's the same level or slightly better at this or slightly better at that, but. It was a good experience.
Were you on an athletic scholarship or?
No, I didn't get a scholarship. Just walked on, redshirted, spent a few years playing. Really enjoyed that experience because it was the first time that I'd done something that I wasn't actually like rewarded for in a way. Like, I put in a lot of work, a lot of time, and didn't get the playing time. So it was a really good experience at the end.
Yeah, because you're just bettering yourself.
Yeah, it's like to stay committed to it and not actually get the thing you want. That's the first time I'd ever experienced that.
So that was baseball. And
that was baseball.
You said basketball as well?
Yeah, so growing up, I loved basketball. Like I said, I spent hours, playing out in the driveway, dribbling. I remember on rainy days, I'd get my mom to back out of the garage so I could dribble. I just wanted to be outside.
You're point guard?
Point guard, yeah, shooting guard. Like I said, I was small, so I had to kind of be out front.
How tall are you, if you don't mind me asking?
I'm about 5'10".
Okay,
now,
so you're
I'm still not
height,
tall,
yeah.
But growing up, in 8th grade, I was 5'0". And I remember that because we had an algebra project that was to scale, and I was 5 foot even, so it was very easy. We didn't have to calculate, the inches or anything. So.
You and I think we're about the same height at that age, yeah. And then, then you hit the growth
small.
spurt. Yeah.
I think I grew, after freshman year of high school, I kind of grew a few inches and kind of eked on up to 5'10".
So what was your first introduction to Catholicism?
Yeah, so like I said, I grew up Methodist. I think me, my older brother, my younger brother all baptized at the same time. So my younger brother's probably about 2. I was maybe like 6. My older brother's about 11. After that, I don't remember us being super active at church.
So pretty much Christmas and Easter's, weddings and funerals.
Now in 6th grade, I was confirmed in the Methodist church. And so that year, I think we were very active. I had to be going to classes and learning.
All the requirements, yeah.
Yeah, we did what we needed to do. And I did learn, a lot that year. But then after that, it kind of went right back to not being that participatory. But I always, I would have always described myself as a Christian, although that had no bearing on my life.
It didn't direct your life or drive you or anything.
And so that's kind of the way I look back is like, my family would have always said we were Christian, but I don't remember us basing decisions on our faith. And so I think, now, of course, the way we're trying to raise our family now is we really try to base everything around the faith. And so I can just look back and see like that's an area of growth, that I've experienced now. But yeah, so kind of through high school, I knew friends who were very into church. They would go to youth groups and things like that. I just didn't, we just wasn't that involved. Youth groups were kind of strange to me. I thought because I would go and then like the youth minister would come over like, hey, you're new, how's it going? And I was like,
you're not used to that.
I'm fine.
Somebody being so welcoming and in your face.
Yeah. And and it was like, at the time I didn't know anything about denominations. So I probably went to a few different Baptist youth groups with different friends. I don't think I ever actually went to the Methodist youth group, at the church that we were kind of attending from time to time. But I just wasn't that involved, And like I said, I thought people that talked about their faith all the time were kind of weird. That's the way I felt, And I think the reason I felt like that is because it felt like a show. It felt very much like, so we're going to go to youth group. Everybody's going to talk about Jesus a lot and be really friendly. And then we're going to go back to school and y'all are going to act the same. The same that you did yesterday. And so I think I'd preferred not to be involved because I didn't have that annoyance, And so I remember back in like elementary school, I had really strong, I would say, a prayer life, like not developed. I didn't know what I was doing, right? But I would lay in bed and I would talk to God in my mind really deep, and I felt very much like He was listening. I lost that as I got older. I just stopped doing it, probably because there was no practice along with it, and I wasn't thinking about Him throughout most days. But I remember that it's like He's always been a strong part of my life when I was open, So yeah, I remember that through high school. But you asked about my introduction to Catholicism, so I kind of bounced around a little bit. So my wife, we started dating. We were 17, so we started dating in high school.
Did she grow up Catholic?
She did, yeah. She was born Catholic. And we had actually, my sophomore year of high school, we had gone, my little brother at that point was going through confirmation at the Methodist church. So we were involved again. Right? And so we were part of his confirmation class, which I thought was neat. They actually went to several different churches around town to experience their Sunday services.
Okay.
So they went to a Baptist church. Of course, they had the Methodist church. They went to a Catholic mass. And then they went to there's an African-American church in town that had their own service as well. I don't remember if it was Baptist or Methodist, but they got to try all of, different services, different congregations, kind of see different traditions, which I thought was really interesting.
Yeah, it is.
But one of those, right, was we have two Catholic churches in Lufkin, and so one of them was at St. Patrick's, and so my wife was there, and so we knew each other from school, and so we saw each other, we weren't dating at that point, but then the next day at school, she was like, "Hey, are you Catholic?" She asked, and I was like, "No way." Like, did I even know what that really meant? No. I think I was a little like hesitant to be labeled as anything, and I didn't know anything about Catholicism. I didn't know anything about denominations even.
You were just vaguely Christian.
Yeah, just Christian. That's the term I would have associated with, But I still remember that because that was my first introduction, right? And then we started dating our junior year, and we had been dating just a couple weeks, and we were sitting out, and she played softball, and she ran cross country and stuff, and so we were in the batting cages after school, hanging out, hitting, and then we started talking, and I was like, one of the things that's most interesting to me about you is that out of all these people that we know, a lot of them talk about God. They go to a youth group or whatever, but they don't seem to believe it because their life doesn't reflect it at all. I was like, but it feels like you actually believe God is real. Like he's not just an idea, or he's not just, you should say you're Christian because you're a good person, right? So you're supposed to say that. It felt different with her. And so that was my introduction. And then of course we dated for years. We dated for 6 years before we eventually got engaged after college. And so I actually attended Mass with her family probably my junior year of college, early in that year. And
so it'd been a while that you were dating before.
Yeah, we had been dating a while, but at that point, my family kind of started going to this non-denominational church, and I attended. My dad passed away actually my freshman year of college, so I graduated. I graduated high school, and then he passed away in that freshman fall semester, and so kind of a lot of transition happened over the next several years. And we had started going to this non-denominational church where the music director from the Methodist church had started kind of his own congregation.
Okay.
At the request of some of the parishioners or of the members of the Methodist church. And so we had been attending. He gave great sermons. He's very intelligent, and I liked listening to him. So it's probably the first time since I was little that I was interested in going, because he gave a lot of history. He talked a lot about actually his sermons are similar. Father Huff gives very good homilies where he ties in history and things like that, so it's similar. But I remember actually as a young kid, we had multiple services at the Methodist church, but the 8 a.m. was the what they called traditional service.
Okay.
And it was mainly all elderly people, but they sang hymns, and it was very traditional. And I preferred that. Right, at 10 a.m. they had
as a young person.
Yeah, they had a contemporary service at 10 a.m. And I just felt uncomfortable. Like, I don't know what it was, like, because they were playing the more like the radio Christian songs, which I like. I like that kind of music, but at the same time, there's something inside of me. I was like, I just don't know if that's like worshiping. It felt a little bit too. And I mean, of course, it was different because it was in the gym, and people were drinking coffee and hanging out. And it just didn't feel serious enough. And even as a young kid, I think I was like, if we're going to go to worship God, it seems like it should feel different. And so I'll jump ahead now to my junior year of college when I went to Mass with her for the first time at St. Andrews. So there's two Catholic churches in Lufkin, St. Patrick's and St. Andrews. And so at this point we went to St. Andrews, which was a 10 building at that moment. They hadn't built their full church yet. And I walked in, and I guess I walked through what I didn't know was called the narthex at the front. And we got into the parish, and I was like, it felt different, and I didn't tell her anything at the moment, but I was like, I was internalizing something is different, and now later looking back, I think what it is as I walked in, people were knelt down, they were praying, and of course I didn't realize it, but Jesus was there, in the tabernacle.
Yes.
And so the difference, I think, was just the presence, right? And the fact that people were reverencing that presence.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It wasn't like we were hanging out until the sermon started. We were actually getting ready to worship. And I didn't know that at the time, but so that was my first experience, and I was interested. Yeah, so I would attend Mass infrequently with her for the next several years through college. And then, kind of following college, I started teaching for the first time, got my first job, actually teaching at the same school where we had graduated high school from.
What did you teach?
And so I taught biology. I taught integrated physics and chemistry, which is just an entry-level freshman physics and chemistry course. Over the next 5 years, I taught a combination of things, environmental systems, some other sciences. But my first year of teaching, right in that summer before we started, we were coming out of Mass, or I had gone to Mass with my wife and her family. Of course, she was my girlfriend at the time. But we came out and they were having a sign-up table at RCIA. So there's an older lady sitting at the table, a sheet of paper. We're taking sign-ups for RCIA.
At this point, were you kind of thinking about getting married eventually?
So I was wanting to get married, right? So I was wanting to get married, and my wife's faith was very important to her. And I just knew that it was important to her to marry someone that was Catholic, that shared the faith, that wanted to grow with her and that.
Did her family ever say anything to you?
No, they never did. They never explicitly said anything, and she didn't either. She never explicitly said that. I just knew, it was so important to her. It's like, I feel like for us to get married, I would need to share that for it to, that's not true for everyone, but for me, that's the way I felt. And I think she shared that as well. And so she actually turned, right? We were coming out of Mass and she turned and she's like, hey, I'm gonna sign up. But she's like, you don't have to sign up. I'm just going to help. And I was like, I didn't know what it was, but I didn't want to be left out. So, so she signed up, and then I kind of asked, like, what is this, And so the lady, Miss Elaine, she was like, well, this is where, people come to learn about the Catholic Church and see if they might want to become Catholic. And so right away, I was like, well, I need to know. I need to know if I'm willing to be Catholic. I don't even know what that really means, but I need to know because I would like us to get married, and this is an important thing for me to know. Yeah. To discern really, but I wouldn't have known the language at that moment. So I signed up, and then I started to attend the weekly classes, and it was an interesting group. There was a couple of kind of middle-aged people. There's a couple of older people. There's me. I was 22, and my wife was 22 as well. And I was interested because there was people that were super educated. We had lawyers. Miss Elaine, that was leading the group, had taught at the junior college there in Lufkin for years and very well educated. And then there's people that weren't, but they're all learning together. They're all conversing. They're all talking about the faith. They welcomed questions, which is really strange. I was like, they don't seem to be intimidated by me asking a question, or they don't even seem to be annoyed. They're actually happy to answer. They want to help, just to help you figure out what you're trying to learn, Yeah. And I just appreciated the way that they kind of ran the class. And so by the time the course was over, I was excited. I was like, I actually want to be Catholic because I'm learning so much. And I think I'd grown up, like I said, my whole life I was Christian, but I didn't know anything. I knew Bible stories from when I was younger, but that's all. It didn't guide my life in any way. There wasn't a catechism, right, that I was aware of, and so I didn't have any way to go if I had questions, like where am I going to go for answers,
Growing up, did you have any misconceptions about Catholics?
It's funny. I think the Lord spared me from that. So my wife, of course, growing up Catholic, she did have some of that from people, and even people that I knew, right, would have made comments and things about Catholics. I didn't know enough. I knew so little. I didn't know anything about denominations. I didn't realize that there's a big difference between Catholics and Methodists or Baptists. I thought we were all Christian. I was kind of confused. So
it was just another brand for you.
Yeah, I didn't hear anything anti anything, technically growing up. And so, so I joined. Of course, I went through the Easter Vigil. I joined, and then at that point, my wife had already been helping with the youth group for multiple years, and so I kind of started helping as I was going through RCIA because her little siblings were in there, and then the kids I taught, some of them were there, and so They were, of course, excited that I was learning and maybe going to be Catholic, because in East Texas, I think it's a 1% Catholic. And so, in the school is like a big deal if one of their teachers are going to become Catholic, because they didn't have very many teachers that were Catholic. And so, as I was learning that year, I'd have my little Catholic Answers Bible on my desk, and kids would ask questions. And so I'd be like, yeah, I'm learning that too. Let's look it up. So it's kind of interesting how that worked. So then after I joined, kind of jumped in. So I went from, I didn't have much of a faith participation, growing up. But now, we go to Mass every Sunday, which I thought was awesome. As I learned that in RCIA, I was like, oh, so they expect you to go to Mass every Sunday. Because for us, it's like, if we're tired, we're not going to go. Or we're traveling, we're not going to go, But they explained, like, anywhere you go, there's a Catholic church. You can go to Mass. I'm like, and it's the same? I'm like, they do the same readings. So I'm like, really? I was confused by that. And so I thought that was awesome. So now we're going to Mass every week, and we signed up to lector. So we're lecturing, we're helping with the youth group. I wanted to help with RCIA the next year. So I went from like nothing to like, we're doing a whole lot of things. And so I was learning, of course, more and more and more, getting very involved. But over time, I also noticed I was doing a lot, but I wasn't really like taking it in. Like I was learning a lot, but I wasn't really, it wasn't affecting my heart a lot. It was still very much on the surface.
So it's more on an intellectual level.
Yeah, it was very intellectual. It's like, this makes sense. I understand why people would be Catholic. I'm happy to, to come in to the church because I agree with everything I'm learning. People have answers. I haven't found anything I disagree with. But over time, I learned too, it's about the internal. It's not just about the external. And for me, it's like, it's not just about my mental. It's also about my heart wanting to do the right things. And so I think that tied in, the Catholic Church offers so much to draw us into the truth. And the truth is a lot deeper sometimes than what you see, right? And so growing up, I was very good at appearances. I was very smart. So I made good grades, right? I knew how to dress nice because I wanted to look nice for my teachers. I wanted to, not get in trouble, so I would act right when I was supposed to act right. I think the only place I was probably raw emotionally was on athletic fields, which is probably a huge draw for me to those venues unknowingly. But I've also learned really well how to like keep things in. And I took a lot of pride in being able to like be unemotional almost, like things would happen, didn't affect me. But it really did, right? I didn't want to tell anyone or show it. And I think it's because I didn't know how to handle it. I didn't know, and I didn't have a source to go to. So I didn't have a faith life to say if I was struggling with something or if something was upsetting, if somebody didn't have the answer for me, then that was it. So why would I even ask the questions? So
you didn't have anything to fall back on.
Yeah, I had no real support like that didn't change, right? And so kind of as I got into the faith, I noticed like, okay, so we have confession. It encourages you to come back and admit the areas that you've fallen. So you don't have to pretend. You don't have to have it all together all the time.
Yeah.
We don't have to pretend like I believe in Jesus and so I'm perfect. I'm gonna make mistakes. And when I make mistakes, the church in its wisdom has set up an opportunity for me to get back into communion with God. It made sense to me that if I fell and made choices to turn away from God, that I would need to do something, to open myself back up to Him. It's not a way of like earning it back, but it's a way of showing like, God, I want you in my life. You know, I showed you that I didn't want you, but let me come back and show you that I do, like let me open myself back up. And so I really fell in love with the sacraments, the fact that, we have the Eucharist. It was new to me, but I was taking it in, slowly over time. And it was probably several years after I'd become Catholic that I really started to notice, that I wanted it to be more than just an intellectual thing. Maybe as we started to have children, especially, as I wanted to offer them an environment where we really raise them in the faith. It wasn't just something that we were, but it's really who we are. Living out our faith is a thing that we do every day, and it's not just on Sundays. And I didn't have examples of that, really. Growing up, I didn't have examples of it, but I didn't know enough people, enough Catholics to model that after either. So we're trying to figure that out, right?
And this is all still in East Texas.
This is all in East Texas. Yeah. So at this point,
still in that 1% of the population that's Catholic.
Right. Yeah. And so basically I had taught for 5 years. So for 4 of those years I'd been Catholic. I moved into administration, also in a public school in East Texas, at a larger public school, high school. And so all that time I was Catholic, but in my school setting, it wasn't. And so I was starting to reach this point where I was like, okay, so I'm wanting the faith to impact all aspects of my life. And I'm struggling, right? Because I go to work, especially in administration, you're dealing with kids with discipline issues, you're dealing with kids with, substance abuse issues. We're having to take them to our alternative campus and try to help them work through that. And it's like, we're trying to help them work through all these things, but we can't even talk to them about what they need. We're trying to help them, but we're not able to tell them who to go to for help. I was like, this is challenging. We're not going to be successful, And so I started talking to my wife, and in Lufkin, there's one Catholic school, but it's K through 8. And I had always worked with high school. And I was like, I feel drawn to work with high schoolers. It's like their last step before they enter adulthood. Like, if we want to make a difference, like that's where I feel like I'm called to work with them. And I was like, we might, if we're going to pray about and discern a Catholic school, we're going to have to move, which was really hard for me to imagine.
Oh, yeah.
At that point, I was an assistant principal. And so that's kind of what I was looking for. But during that process, I got reached out to by the rector of the cathedral in Tyler, who was at that moment the president of Bishop Gorman Catholic School. And he was like, hey, we're about to start a principal search. I met you a few months ago when I was in Lufkin. He'd spent a few weeks in Lufkin as kind of an interim between pastors. And so we had met. He's like, we're about to start a search. If you're interested, just send in an application. And I was like, interesting, because this is in our diocese, right? I know this pastor. I didn't know they were going to be looking for a principal. I've been sending out applications all over the place to further away places. And so he told me that, and so I was like, well, yeah, I am interested. I've already been sending out applications to Catholic schools. So I did send in my application. It was a very slow process, and I realized that's going to take so long. And so, long story short, eventually I did accept the job as principal at Bishop Gorman. And that was providential because we got to move to Tyler, experience a move for the first time, experience a Catholic school. I was also able, at that position, the rector of the cathedral, after a year, had kind of requested from Bishop Strickland if he could not also be the president of the school, because he just had a lot on his plate. So it enabled me to kind of inherit the principal and president duties, which gave me the experience, that I gained there. And it was a great experience when we went through COVID there. So we kind of, I moved into Catholic schools, and then my first, it's like, wow, this is intense. So we kind of got to work through that, and just a huge learning experience. And then we had been there for a couple of years, and I was starting to get this feeling inside, similar to what I'd felt when I got the feeling that we need to move into Catholic schools. And my wife and I talked about it, and this time it was more of a ministry thing. It was like, we used to volunteer with youth ministry and RCIA and lecturing, and now, I was doing so much at the school, we weren't doing anything else. We weren't doing anything outside of the school at the church. And I was like, I think I'm actually desiring to work in ministry full time. I think that's what I'm feeling. So we prayed about it, and I actually I talked with Bishop Strickland. I was like, hey, this is what I'm feeling. I feel like we're gonna look for something in ministry. I don't know what, I don't know what we're doing, but I feel like that's what we need to do. And so he was supportive of that. And so literally within the week, I started to look. I applied at multiple places to see, but there was a parish here in Houston at St. Ignatius that had posted like 2 days after I had talked to Bishop. They were having 2 positions open for youth and young adult ministry, directors of each.
Okay.
Long story short, we both interviewed. They offered us positions, and it came down between moving to Houston, moving kind of to South Texas, or moving maybe possibly up to Denver. Were the 3 options we were looking at. And we kind of cut the process short. We're like, look, we prayed about it. St. Ignatius posted positions that quickly, and then they offered it to us. Like, let's not let's not get too picky. Like this is what God's wanting.
So no kids yet at this point.
No, yeah, we did have kids. Yeah, I'm so sorry. Yeah, we had at that point we had two little girls. Yeah, so
how old were they?
Three and two.
Oh, still
when we moved to Houston,
not yet school age.
Yeah, still small.
So it's a good time to do a move.
Yeah, so we had moved to Tyler with one daughter who was 15 months, and then the week we got there, we had our second daughter. so our second daughter was born right when we got to Tyler. So when we moved, they were about 3 and 2, and then we got here. We were working, youth and young adult ministry. Really enjoyed it. Enjoyed the different flow. It's different than a school. You get to work with the kids in a different way. You can talk about things in a different way. Even from a Catholic school setting, it's like, this is different, right? It's in the parish. You're more, you get to talk about just this. That's all we're.
Yeah.
And so we had been here. We actually got pregnant within about, the first several months that we were here. So when we first got pregnant, and we lost our son while we were there at St. Ignatius with a miscarriage. And so that was a really impactful experience for me and my wife. We had 2 pregnancies before where we had our 2 daughters, and then with our son we got pregnant, and then we did lose him with a miscarriage. And so that was the support we felt from Father Norbert was great, from the community, a lot of support, a lot of prayers. Even we had a funeral home that just really welcomed us in to honor our son. And so when people lose children, sometimes there's in our culture, there's like a tendency to kind of move on and maybe not really take in what happened. And so kind of I experienced that in the sense that when we found out, that we were losing him, one of the doctors that we were working with was like, well, y'all are young and healthy. You'll probably have another, and you might not have to tell your 2 daughters, that you lost a little boy. And I was like, why would we not tell them? Because they have a brother. They have a brother. It's not going to change just because. And so we prayed through that, and it really like the thought that he's able to pray for us if he's in heaven now as a clearly he didn't have any sins, right? And so we talked to Father Norbert about that and prayed about that. And so we tell our daughters, like, you should always remember you have a brother. Pray and talk to him, and he can look out for you, and he can pray for you too. And there's no reason to pretend that he didn't exist with us.
Yeah, because he's a major part of your life.
Yeah, and maybe that's why we lost him here, so that he could actually pray for us there. And through further discernment, I think a big part of me had always doubted, right? So I was talking about the head and the heart thing, right?
Yeah. So
always trying to earn it, and I think that comes from athletics and other things. Very competitive. I had 2 brothers, so we're competing for everything throughout my whole life. And so I think I was trying to be a really good Catholic, right? I was like, I want to do all these things right, and prove myself worthy, of God. But there's a deeper part that was like, but I'll never actually be that good, because the mistakes I've made or things I've done, or, just obviously still gonna sin. Like there's no way I can actually live up to this perfection that I want. And so there's always this doubt, like, what if I do all this work? Like, what if I do all these things to try to prove myself and I don't make it to heaven? Like, what if I don't? And so it's like after we lost our son, Ray, we lost, and it's like he's already there. And so he's a part of me, and he's a part of my wife. So there's a part of us already in heaven. And it's kind of like God revealing, like, you had this doubt, like you had this concern that you might not ever be worthy, but there's I already brought a part of you here, so you don't have to worry about that. And it was really comforting and really, and again, it's like a powerful way to tell our daughters, like, don't forget, we pray for him, we go and we spend time, to honor him. And so shortly after we lost him, we did get pregnant again with a little girl that we now have that's 11 months old now. And, it's, if we hadn't lost Ray, we wouldn't have her. And if, so it's just kind of like seeing how God works through all the things. And it's the beauty that in our society, suffering is so avoided.
Yeah.
And I think that was a turnoff for me growing up as well about Christians, right? That I was around. I was like, you had to be happy all the time. Like, yeah, we're wonderful, at the church. And I'm like, that can't be real. People can't be that happy all the time.
Yeah.
And it's not that we're not joyful. It's not that, life's not really joyful. But it's also not easy all the time. And it's okay, and I think that's what my Catholic faith has taught me. It's okay not to have it all together 24/7.
Yeah.
It's okay to say like, hey, I'm just not having a great day today. But I'm still loved by God, right? I don't have to pretend like, no, everything's wonderful because God loves me and nothing can touch me. Things are going to happen. We're going to have days where we're frustrated or where we lose our son and we are sad.
Yeah.
We grieve that, but that we can grieve it still from a place of hope and still from a place of joy eternally, not a place of, well, I'm not going to let it bother me.
Yeah.
Good luck with that. So as we're there, once we became pregnant with our daughter, after we lost Ray, we kind of done a deeper discernment through the process and thought potentially us both working in ministry wasn't going to work forever because the hours, it's like we can't both be gone multiple nights a week with little kids. It's just not potentially going to work forever. And so at that point, a friend of mine actually sent me a job posting for president for Cathedral High School as we were having these discussions. And so I was like, wow, interesting.
And the school was just being planned at that point, right?
Yeah, so at that point, the school wasn't open. It was opening the next fall. They were in construction and they were in the planning phase, right? So they had hired a number of the teaching faculty had already been agreed, to be hired, and if not all of them at that point, but they had made the transition to a president-principal model, and so they were looking for the president. And so I was like, interesting. So I had to pray about that too. I was like, I just got out of school to do ministry. I'm not sure. And so we started to pray about it. And then I looked up the school and I started to read about it, and I saw the curriculum as classical. At that moment, I wasn't that familiar with classical education because I'd gone up through public schools. I hadn't even gone to Catholic schools, and so the classical thing was new to me. But I knew I wanted to be in Catholic education, and I also knew, as I read about the mission and the vision of the school, is a beautiful, beautifully articulated. Students would go to mass every day. They would have opportunities for confession throughout the week. I read about the classical model and kind of how it opens up the search for truth and the way that things are taught, and encouraging questions and dialogue and learning how to articulate and how to write. And I was like, man, I'm actually really drawn to this. I had never heard of the Ordinariate, so I actually had to do some research. I was like, is the Ordinariate Catholic? Because I didn't know. And I was a convert, so I was like, I don't want to accidentally go off.
Oh, yeah.
I came and did the first round of interviews. And I left and I told my wife, I was like, I think I actually really want that job.
Nice.
I was like, I don't think it's just a maybe thing. I actually hope it works out.
Yeah. And it's not like a let's just see what happens type thing. It's I want this.
Then they reached out and got some more information, and then eventually I had another interview, and in that interview with Bishop Loos was there, and so we got to talk through the interview process about the school, about the vision for the school, about all of the different people and work that had gone into planning for the school for multiple years, and kind of what the plan was for the building that was being built, but then the curriculum and what we want for the students. And I was like, yes, that's exactly what I want. Because if I'm going to work and promote a school and try to get people to be interested in it, I want it to be a school that I think is going to put students in a position to become saints. It's like we don't want... I feel like God has always helped me to really want to be authentic, and I think that's something I struggle with a lot. Growing up, authenticity was really a challenge for me because I wanted to look like everything was okay, look the part, never have issues, it's like make sure that at all times everything looks fine, no matter what the truth was, But I was like, I don't want a society where our students or our children are growing up and they're like, yeah, I'm Catholic, but I'm not going to mention it 90% of my life because it doesn't help me. It's like, I'm Catholic. Yes, I go to mass on Sunday, but I can still do everything else throughout the week that everyone else does because it's not going to really impact my life. I was like, that's not what we want, for our kids. We want them, if they know the Lord, if they know their faith, they're not going to want to leave it for Sunday. Yeah.
Not just an hour a week.
Yeah. And then we talk about like the statistics of students that stop going to Mass once they graduate high school. 80% of our youth are not going once they graduate.
Yeah.
It's like, well, I wonder why. It's like if they're around a society that treats the faith as if it can be minimalized, even within the church sometimes, right? Sometimes we can see it minimalized. We're like, well, we don't want to be too forceful, or we don't want to be too adamant. But we're a Catholic school, so we go to Mass every day. Not every Catholic school is going to go to Mass every day, but that's how this school was built. And we could think about that, but why? That's how we were started. Why would we go away from it? Why would we take away what we know is the most important part of our faith? If we're a Catholic, what makes us Catholic is the Mass, right? Going to Mass, receiving Jesus, and knowing about the sacraments. Why would we focus on anything else more than that? And that's not to say that everything else we do isn't important, but it is to say, hey, if we want students and children to grow up and live a life focused where God is the center, they have to see that from others, right? And a lot of times the family may be that, the family may have that there, but at some point a student is going to have to go somewhere else and be around someone else. The family can't, you can't keep your kids right there forever. Yeah. I mean, you could try, but I don't think that's best for them. And so, here, like the community of the students go to Mass together as peers every day, with their faculty, with parents are able to come. They sing in the choir, they serve at the altar, they lecture. It's a part of their daily life. And it's not that they don't have rough days, right? And that's the beautiful thing is, when the school year started last year, I think there was kind of like a mask of like, wow, this is beautiful. And the Mass, as I hadn't been to an ordinary form Mass until I started working here, so I'd only been to a few before school started. And so to hear the choir and the students singing every day, I was like, man, this is beautiful. But then, of course, there's, after you get into the routine of things, like there's a day or two where you're just tired, but we're still here. Yeah. It's like we don't have to be perfect every time we have Mass, or we don't have to have Mass just once every so often so that we can all prepare and be like on our best behavior for Mass day. And it's like, no, God wants every day. We want to give it every day. And so really what drew me here is I thought if I have young kids, where would I want them to go to school? And this was the type of school I would want for them. So that's really what drew me to want the position. And then once we got here, we're seeing it unfold. We've got freshmen, sophomores now, so we got more students going every day together. And
this is the second year of the school now, right?
Yeah, this is our second year. So last year we just had freshmen. This year we have freshmen and sophomores. It's been a joy to see the families that come in. It's also interesting because in our society, right? I mean, I'm the only Catholic in my family, and so of course there's times where like we're all going to be put in positions where you have to think like how to form conversations, or how do we talk about, because we talk about the faith so much, it's like I don't want to get on people's nerves with it either, but it's like I think it's important, So,
did you have any difficulty with your family when you converted?
Well, I think at the conversion, I think there were some questions like, well, what do you think about everyone else? Like, are you going to look down on us?
Are you going to reject us?
Yeah, because we're not Catholic, or, do you think, and maybe they didn't say this, but like kind of like, do you think we're wrong, or do you think there's something wrong with us because we're not, or are you not going to want to come to church with us anymore? I'll be honest, I was so infantile in my conversion, right? Going through RCIA, I didn't even know. I was like, I knew I was going to go to Mass. Like, I could probably still go to church, But then as I got into it, and I learned more and about the Eucharist in particular, I was like, I can't go to another service and receive, what is being said to be just a symbol. That's what they call it. Right? Yeah. Because to be honest, why wouldn't I do that? It's like, it's not because I'm looking down on what you're doing. it's because to preach the truth to you that I believe Jesus is in the Mass, I'm not going to come and receive what's a symbol. Like the real Jesus is available to you and to me in our Mass.
Yeah.
I would love for you to come experience that, and it's not about, being better than or creating a rift, it's more about really, if I believe this, and I say I believe, right, because I joined the church, if I actually believe it, I need to live that out. Because if I'm not going to live it out, then I don't actually believe it.
Yeah.
And so that's
did any of your family resent that?
I think there were some hurt feelings, because, I didn't go back to church, for instance, after I became Catholic, and I didn't know that going into RCIA. I didn't know that I would never go back.
Oh.
Because I didn't really understand, but it's just like the more I learned, I didn't desire it, and I'll be honest, the sermons were really good. I mean, I could have still learned a lot about history and a lot about scripture, but that's not what I was seeking. I'm seeking a relationship with God, not just knowledge, and so, and I really don't intend that to be, controversial to anyone else. Because everyone's in their own timeline. You can't rush people. So like, even if, with particular people in my family, for instance, they may be at their own stage, or, people in general, maybe in their own stage, or somewhere else in their faith, or maybe they've fallen away from the Catholic Church, or maybe they're in another, community. But, God is working all the time, and He's working through everything. And I think that's what I've learned throughout my life is, we can look at difficult situations we've been in and see why. Why would God have allowed that? Well, because without that, we wouldn't have ended up here. I wouldn't even be in this position here if we hadn't had, difficult things happen to us while we were here in Houston.
Yeah.
We wouldn't have moved to Houston if we hadn't discerned, out of a situation in Tyler. So he uses every little thing to put you in position, and then you might think like, well, I'm giving up on this opportunity, but then He literally presents something else you didn't even know existed. And so recently, just last spring, I had only prayed maybe a couple of rosaries ever. I think, like I mentioned, Awakening. At that Awakening retreat, we prayed a rosary, the whole group. It was the first rosary I'd ever heard, ever. And so I was sitting in a chair in my little group, and everybody across this big room started praying the rosary together, and I was like, "What is happening?" I was like,
What'd you think of it back then?
It was strange. It was a strange experience because I didn't know what the rosary was. So I didn't know what it was. So,
no idea whatsoever.
Yeah. So they're like, "We're gonna pray the rosary," and I was like, "Okay," and I was like, "This is taking a long time." It's like, I don't know what prayer this is, but y'all are saying the same thing over and over and over. And so I didn't really have any curiosity after that. I was kind of glad it was over, and we moved on to whatever else in the retreat. And then I remember I told my wife this, because she grew up Catholic, and like I said, the faith was a big part of her life, but the rosary wasn't necessarily a big part of her prayer life individually. Her grandma prayed it, and she prayed it with her grandma as a young child, but we prayed a rosary together, and we had either just gotten married or we were engaged, and we were at her parents' house, we're hanging out, and it was random. We went to her room that she had used growing up, and we were going to pray the rosary. And we did it once. And it was such a strange, I was like, again, kind of like, why are we doing this? And then, but I wanted to do it because I was coming into the church, and I was like, I want to know, but I never went back to it. And just last spring, my wife came across some of Gabe Castillo's videos. About the rosary. And
we've had him on the show too. He's awesome.
Yeah, and then my wife was like, "Hey, do you know Gabe Castillo with these talking about praying the four rosaries?" Like, Gabe Castillo, I was like, his son goes to our school. And I was like, yeah, I know. Gabe was like, so I watched some of his videos, and I was like, man, I could not imagine praying 4 rosaries a day. And my wife was like, she told me, she's like, I'm going to try it. I was like, there is no way I could do that. And then I watched her do it for about a month, and I was like, and then she was talking about it, what she was noticing. And I was like, so you're praying 4 mysteries a day. I was like, are you really? It's like, but I was seeing difference too. Like I was seeing like the calm, the peace, like the consistent, like, joy in doing it. And I was like, I'm just going to try it once. Try it one time and just to see if I could even do it. Like I'm going to say today I'm going to do it and I'm going to see if it works. I'm going to see if I'm able to do it. And I did, right? I did all 4. And where I work now, I drive a little bit over an hour to and from work. And so I was like, so that's got a lot of prayer time, and I was using it for other things like podcasts or, a lot of good things. But I was like, I could pray a rosary to work and a rosary home. Well, that's 2 knocked out, and then, got other times a day. So it worked, right? I did all 4. And so I was like, I'll try it again tomorrow, see how it goes. And then I would say for about 3 months, I was very consistent with the 4 every day. Then school started. And so I fell off. I wasn't doing all 4. And maybe just last week, my wife was like, well, we're doing this podcast. She's like, why don't you should be talking to Mary and asking her, to guide the conversation. And she's like, well, maybe try it again, get back into it. But what I've learned through this process is like, the perfection. I've always sought perfection, like in everything. Like if I'm going to do something, I want to be perfect, and that's why looking back at my experience of college athletics was helpful, because it was the first time I really had no success. Like what I really wanted didn't even come close. Yeah. But I'm learning the mercy, right? It's like, you don't actually have to do it perfect every time, and by trying to pray 4 rosaries over the last week, I've prayed many more than I would have if I hadn't tried, So even though I haven't done 4 every day, I've probably prayed, 10 times more than I would have had I not thought about it, or had she not even suggested it, right? And so kind of this understanding of Mary, when I entered the church, I heard a lot of things from outside, like, well, Protestants have issues with Mary, right? I wouldn't have considered myself Protestant because I didn't know anything about myself. I didn't know anything about the faith, and as far as to know what to neglect or what to be, against. But I also didn't really develop a relationship with Mary for a while, but really over the last year, I'm kind of understanding this idea that we can really have a relationship just with her too. And it's really been, even this morning, I was texting my wife and I was feeling kind of just anxious. I had a lot of things I was trying to get done in the first couple hours, of the day. And I was starting to feel a little bit overwhelmed. I was like, I just don't think I'm going to get it done. And I just prayed, I just started to pray a rosary on the way to work. I was like, I was just feeling, and I was like, 10 minutes later, I sent her a voice message. I was like, I don't know what happened, but I feel fine. I was like, I feel okay now. Just to let you know, I didn't have to
that's awesome.
Stress about it anymore. And then she was like, she texted back, well, Mary put her mantle over you and protected you from all that, the anxiety and stuff you were feeling. And I've heard that said a lot of times about the mantle, let Mary put her mantle over you, or, ask for the protection. And I didn't really understand what that meant, but that happened this morning, right? And I was feeling, in the moment, I was like, I actually am understanding that feeling now, because really the thought to be protected by her, it was an experience, because all of a sudden I didn't feel anxious about the same things I still had to do. My list hadn't changed. Nothing had changed, but the outlook had changed. And so I think Mary has been a good a source for me to go to as a mother, to say like, hey, I need some help. I need some comfort. I need something, because I can't do it. And it's been different, with her. I don't feel quite so afraid to say that, quite so nervous that I just really can't do it.
So right now you're into the second year of the school. I'm guessing the plan is to move it, the kids.
Yes, yeah, absolutely. So last year we started with freshmen only. This year we have freshmen and sophomores. Next year would be freshmen through juniors. And then of course the 4th year we'd have all 4 grade levels. And so as we're growing, the grade levels will get a little bit larger as we go.
And then you hire more teachers as well.
We'll hire more faculty. So we're, extraordinarily blessed. Probably doesn't even give enough credit to the people that worked and fundraised and donated to make the school possible. Because the building was built before, right? It didn't end up being before, but we finished it in December of the first year. So the students, the very first class, they spent a semester in the chancery, but then they moved into the building where we're now in a fully completed school for 4 years. And as we grow into the school, we're already in the space. And so we were able to hire a full faculty for the freshmen. We didn't have to add too much this year as we just added sophomores. Next year, we'll add a few more as we get to juniors, add a little bit more as we get to seniors, and kind of fill out the faculty. But because it was a brand new school, every faculty member was able to discern, like, this is your vision, this is your mission. They already had a job somewhere else, right? I mean, it's not like they were scrambling for positions. They sought this school for the mission and the vision that we have, and they all joined the faculty, which has made, a huge difference in the quality of care that they're able to provide because they all want the same thing.
Yeah.
And schools, of course, I really do believe all schools have, good things to offer. I think every school has good things to offer. And I think also every school has some things that they're not the best at. I mean, I think that's, if we don't say that, that's not true. But as we're growing into our school, what I'm noticing, the concern really for all of us here is that we're living in a community of people that want Jesus to be at the center, that want the faith to really not just be a part of what we do, but they want it to really encapsulate everything that we do. The classical curriculum allows for that. It's just more set up to allow for all the subjects to interrelate, because that's the point, is to, a purely classical curriculum, let's take out Catholic, is to show how all things are related, right?
So what exactly do you mean by classical education?
Yeah, so classical education has more to do with the pedagogy, the style of teaching, and also kind of what your focus is. And so you see different schools, some are college prep or some are, maybe like a technical school. So a classical school is focused on the way things are taught and also with the curriculum. So the classical model helps students to really learn that everything is interrelated. If it wasn't Catholic, let's say, a purely classical curriculum is going to show how, math relates to music and how your science courses are also related. There's nothing that's on an island, right? So I grew up in public schools. I mean, when I went to science, I was in science.
Yes.
When I went to math, I was in math. And when I went to music, I didn't go to music, because it wasn't involved. It wasn't a part of my course load. And so it's very isolated. Every course is its own thing. But here, because it's the classical model, everything is related. And it's taught that way, right? And because we're Catholic, the real difference there is that everything is not just related accidentally. It's related because the same creator made it, right? So we're just helping students to really see that and understand that. And so some of the ways they do that is they read classic works. So we have a Catholic culture class where the Catholic culture class kind of encapsulates English and history, geography, and it's taught from it's kind of like a great books course where you read classic works and the students discuss them. But it's also to see like what was happening in the world during the times that these books were written. So you're learning history, you're learning literature. The students not only learn how to talk about it through seminars, they learn to write about it, and so they're learning to process their thoughts. And the point is to learn how to seek truth, right? So they also learn grammar, they learn rhetoric, they learn how to really understand the world around them, which I think is probably more important now than ever before, because people that don't know how to think will be told what to think 100 times a day, So this is the truth. This is the truth. You have to think this. Yeah. And if you don't really know how to think internally, and more than that, even to go to God to seek the truth, you're going to absorb a lot of falsities, right? You're going to take in as if they're true. And that's what we don't want for our youth. I mean, nobody wants that for their kids. They don't want their kids to grow up and take in ideologies or take in things.
Fall for anything,
No, it's like, if you're going to believe something, know why. Yeah. But the world does not want you to ask why, because that can be offensive. Why would you ask me that question? Don't you just trust me? No.
Now, you said that here at school, Mass every day.
Yep.
So, and then also you said choir is also involved in that. So
we're an ordinariate school, right? We're built on the ordinariate patrimony. If people don't know what the ordinariate is, like I didn't, originally, but it's a diocese that was created as non-geographical. kind of through Pope John Paul II, through Pope Benedict XVI, and on into Pope Francis. And it's being it was created, right, as a pathway into the Catholic faith for those of an Anglican background.
Yes.
And so originally that was the majority of the people was from the converts. So priests, congregations even together. But now the way Pope Benedict XVI really articulated it is it's a treasure to be shared. So it's not just for converts. It's actually also to evangelize even other Catholics, to give them a way to come and worship still within the Catholic faith, still through Rome, right, as our head, but at the same time in a different rite. And so the Mass looks a little different. But yeah, our students experience Mass every day. And because we're an ordinariate school, the 4 pillars of our school are sacred worship, sacred wisdom, sacred music, and sacred art. And so sacred worship, of course, we worship daily. And then with sacred wisdom, that would encapsulate the rest of our curricular courses, our science courses, our mathematics courses, our theology course. It would really take up, our Catholic culture course. And then I'm sure I'll miss something as I'm running down the list, but sacred music and sacred art are unique. And so I want to talk a little bit about those because, most schools, and for me in particular, I can say fine arts is an afterthought. So when I went to school, athletics was my thing. That's what I really liked to do. As a freshman, you had to have a full credit of fine arts in high school. So my first semester I took art. My second semester I took speech. Done with fine arts. Right? And so I never experienced anything. And it was easy for me to say, well, I'm just not good at that because I only did it for a semester.
Yeah.
And I knew I was only going to do it for a semester, so it's not like I tried to get better. You know?
just dipped your toe in it and that was it.
Yeah, I just did what I had to do and got out of there. And so at our school, students will experience sacred art and sacred music. So in sacred music, they'll sing. So chorally, because we sing at Mass daily, so a portion of the students will sing in the choir loft daily. Maybe freshman guys, freshman girls, sophomore guys, sophomore girls, or something like that. Sometimes they sing co-ed. Just depends on what Mass or what we're doing what day. But they'll sing for 4 years and they'll continue to develop. Right. So a student that comes in as a freshman and is like, singing is not my thing. That's totally fine because for most people they haven't been in a formal training through 8th grade.
Yeah.
So they're going to come in and not be formally trained.
Yeah.
But the difference, we had an even song tonight actually. So the difference between students when they get here in August to even September to October, they're making growth in singing. Kids that don't sing, right? They came in and said that wasn't their thing. And then I'll talk about sacred art and then I'll talk about why it's important that's in our curriculum and why it's a blessing really for our students. So in sacred art, they're going to spend 4 years in art, right? They'll spend time painting and drawing. They'll spend time, this year they're doing ceramics. So they're working with clay. We have a kiln. We're blessed to have a kiln so they can bake their things and kind of create different things. We've coffee cups. Our whole faculty made holy water fonts,
Nice.
So it's kind of it's an interesting thing. And then they'll make stained glass as they get older into junior and senior years.
That's cool.
Or they'll make illuminated manuscripts. So there's all kinds of things that they're doing. And the sacred art that we're making is all found within the church, right? So our director of sacred art said basically she wanted us to go into the parish, look at the altar, see all the different forms of art that are there, and help the students learn to create it. And so a lot of parents, of course, naturally and rightfully would be like, why would y'all have fine arts be such a big part? Now, are you a fine arts school? We're not a fine arts school, right? We're a classical school or a classical Catholic school. But why the arts are so important? First of all, singing, right? When we get to heaven, we don't know exactly what heaven's going to be like, but we're going to sing.
Yes.
We know that. So it'd be okay to be better at it when we get there. And so...
And not just be learning when you get there.
And then fine art's the same thing. Like, why would you want to learn? But there's 2 things. And first is, I feel like God, we're made in his image and likeness, but the thing that we do the most like God is when we create. So we're able to procreate, right? With our spouse, we can make more people, which is amazing. But then also, we can make things, we can make art, we can make music, we can create things that nobody else has seen before and that's totally unique to me. So me and you could draw the same picture, but it's not going to look the same.
Yeah.
And even if it looked very close, it wouldn't be the same.
Yeah.
Right. And so that creative spirit is given to us from God. We want to cultivate it. We don't really want to just be problem solvers where all we know how to do is dissolve problems and figure out the answer. That's not really all we want to know how to do. That's a good thing. And we teach math and science too, Those are all goods, but the arts, are important. And then probably another, and what I've talked about more so with families even, is that our society needs a school like this. All right. So our society, our students grow up, and our children, they go through school, they get out of school, and even more so in the last 10 years because cell phones are like only getting more and more prevalent.
Yeah.
As a society, right, students, they graduate high school, they go out into the world, and the last thing they want to do is to be seen. They don't want to be seen, they don't want to be talked to, they don't want to be known as a person. Maybe a persona, they're okay with people seeing.
Yeah.
But I mean, we can see this, right? Today you can walk, drive to the parking lot of any store you want to go to and park and just watch. Any person, younger or middle-aged or old probably, if they're alone, they will not be without a cell phone in their hand because they're nervous. They don't want to be looked at. They don't want people to look at them. They don't know how to make eye contact anymore. This is for people that grew up without phones, right? But our kids, we don't have cell phones at our school. So they turn them in. When they walk in the door, if they have one, 50% of our students have a phone. They turn it in at the desk. They don't get it back till they leave. So they spend the whole day eye contact with each other, talking with each other. They eat with both hands, right? They don't eat with one hand with the phone,
Yeah.
So, I mean, the fine arts allow them the opportunity to connect with their hands, to do things with their body, with their vocals, and then also the vulnerability. The reason people go to their phone when they're in public is because they're scared, right? They're nervous. They don't want to be seen. They don't want people to ask them questions.
Yeah.
When I go to a college campus and I walk into the cafeteria, why am I going to pull my phone out to eat? Because it looks like I have something to do. It looks like I'm important. I have something I'm thinking about. I'm focused. It's not because I'm scared and I'm lonely, right?
Yeah.
That would be horrible if somebody thought that. So I've got to look busy. But that's because we're uncomfortable with vulnerability. We don't want people to see us in our weaknesses. And in most aspects of our life, we're not able to be. Because if you're not good enough at that thing, you don't get to do it. If you're not good at that sport, you don't play it. If you're not good at that instrument, you stop doing it.
You don't even try.
You don't even try. I mean, our culture really snuffs out hard work, which is so crazy because we snuff out hard work, yet we praise people that are really good at things. Well, there's only one way you get really good at things. I mean, it doesn't happen by accident.
And that's cool that you're able to, like, even like you said with the music, the students can work hard to get better at it.
And you're encouraged, right? So you come in as a freshman, you're like, I'm not good at art and music. Well, I'm gonna have to do it for 4 years. Yeah, but you're not gonna be alone. And you're gonna learn that even if at the end of 4 years you're not the best, you're still okay, right?
Yeah.
So like okay as in you're still you.
Yeah.
You're still important. You're still valuable. We still love you. We still care for you. Even if you're still not a great singer, right? You're going to learn and get better, but you don't have to reach perfection ever. You don't have to.
And I think that was good also with your spiritual life. You know, keep trying.
That's right. We're always just working for progress. We're wanting to get closer to God and just allow Him to make us more who we are. And I think the comfortability, when I would teach in public schools, I might have a roster of 135, 140 students that I'm teaching throughout the day. Likely in a year, 3 to 4 students, I could go home and tell my wife, like, these 4 kids, like, they're comfortable being themselves.
Yeah.
And the rest aren't. And it's sad, right? And that's me too. I mean, that is, that's still me sometimes, right? I mean, we can all fall back and like I walk into a situation and I'm like, I'm not sure if I'm good enough for this situation or how to act, but we don't want that. We want to form our children to be, I know God made me. I have my talents. I have my strengths. I have my weaknesses. That's what I have to offer the world.
How many students do you have here right now?
So right now we have 29. Yeah, 29. We have 15 freshmen, 14 sophomores.
Okay, and then more and more are coming in, and you already have enrollees for next year?
Yeah, so we've had our open house. We start applications. We'll start getting those in the spring officially. Acceptances and things like that. This school is built to house 50 per grade level.
Okay.
So there's some schools that are built, and the goal is to get as big as possible. That's not the goal. All right, Bishop Lopes wants us to have 50 per grade level. The building was built that way, so the classrooms don't hold more than 18.
Okay.
So we couldn't actually probably even try to get more than 220, even if we wanted to try to get bigger. But we don't really want to. And the reason for that is the 50 per grade level allows a consistent, real connection from teachers to students, from administration to families. At no point would we have more than 200 families if they were all single siblings, but we already have some siblings. And, so we'll probably never have 200 families. We'll have less than that, which allows the community to grow together. And really the reason for that is, I think about why wouldn't we want to just get bigger and bigger and bigger? But as you get larger and you lose the direct contact, you sometimes lose the formation.
Yeah.
And so I was thinking about this last year. Our students, when they graduate, they will have attended Mass with their peers as many times. I don't have the number anymore, but as many times as 14 years worth of Sundays.
Wow.
So if they went to Sunday Mass only, it would take 14 years to go as much as they're going to go in 4 years at our school with each other.
That's
cool. So they're going to graduate having gone to Mass with their peers. They're going to go off to college or wherever they go. Most of them will go to college because that's what they're going to choose to do. We've got intelligent kids, and that's God's going to use them through some form of education, most likely. And they're going to get there, and when somebody says, "Why do you go to Mass?" they're not going to say, "I have no idea."
Because my parents said so, right? Yeah.
And I also feel really awkward now because I'm starting to realize that I only went to Mass with my family ever, and now I'm around a lot of other young people, and none of them are going.
Yeah.
Our kids are going to be able to look at them and say, "Yeah, I go to Mass," and it's normal. All of my school goes to Mass consistently together as peers, and you should try it too. You should come with me instead of the other way around. And if we're really trying, to change the world, which should be our goal, right?
Yeah.
If God's working in us, we want to change the world around us. Our students will graduate 50 per grade level as we start to reach capacity. Over 20 years or so, it'd be 3,000 to 4,000 graduates that would go through that formation here, and 3,000 to 4,000 adults in the world
scattered out.
They're really formed deep in their faith as a community, didn't have to be perfect, learned how to bounce back from imperfections and from failures. That can be really powerful for the whole world. It doesn't have to just be here in Houston.
Yeah.
And if we're trying to form saints, this is, even when we have 8th grade classes come in, I talk to them. I'm like, this is what we're doing here, right? We're not trying to sell you on our gym or other things. Like all those parts of our school are going to be important, and we're going to do them. But the point, this school exists to allow the formation of saints. And saints, they always arise up together, St. Augustine didn't become St. Augustine by himself.
Yeah.
He was inspired by St. Ambrose, right? And time after time, you read about saints that lived with friends that were also saints.
Yeah.
It's not accident.
Yeah.
That's because they encourage each other, they challenge each other, and then they lived in a community that allowed them to pursue sainthood as an important thing, all right? Not just like, well, maybe I'll be a saint, maybe not.
If you have if there are any parents that want to, learn about getting their kid into, the school, how do they go about it?
Yeah, so the process, our website is cathedralhouston.org. That's easy. You can just go to the website. On there, we have all the information for admissions or about our curriculum, about our faculty. You can learn everything that you want to know. Our daily Mass is open. We have daily Mass 8:05 every day.
And the kids are in there and
at the Cathedral of Our Lady of Walsingham. Yeah, you can come. You can come to Mass, and see it, hear it, pray it with us. After that, you can come walk over to the school. We'll give you a tour. So.
And the tours, are they available every day or?
I mean, if somebody came, we'd make time to show them around. Now, if they want to reach out and schedule it, normally we schedule them. But if somebody pops in, we've had multiple that came to Mass, and then I'll walk them around the school, or our admissions director will walk them around the school, because we want to show off what God's doing. I didn't make the school. I didn't even know about the school until it was almost done. But God's doing something here. He's done something in a lot of people's hearts to lead them to help the school be created. He's done something in a lot of people's hearts to lead them to want to work here. I mean, the founding families, he obviously did a work in their heart to get them to join a brand new school when there's so many options, So it's just beautiful to see as we grow but also to see, what is God doing, and these students, the opportunity that they have, and also the challenge to not take it for granted, what they're doing, and the building that they're in, the people that they're around, the fact that they have all, not only the curriculum that's challenging them and they're learning, classical curriculum is not easy. It's very rigorous. It's not something you can just kind of walk through or, be a passerby. Mm-hmm. There's a lot of reading. There's a lot of writing. There's a lot of work. There's a lot of experiments in math and science. I mean, there's, and there's no hiding. Our numbers keep you from that. You can hide, even at 50 per grade, when we get to our max capacity, our teachers are going to see you. They're going to encourage you to participate because the classes are going to be small enough to do that.
That's fantastic.
Yeah. And we just want that, we want that for as many as we can.
It's exciting what's happening here and how, y'all are growing, and, we wish you the best of luck. This is awesome.
Yeah.
This is awesome.
It is. I mean, and when I pray and give thanks for work in particular, and I'll talk about work because we're talking about in this moment, but there's so many clergy even that sacrifice to make this happen, right? So Bishop Lope's support from the bishop's level makes this possible, right? Mm-hmm. He supported the curriculum. He supports our daily mass. He supports our schedule. Father Huff is the rector of the cathedral. He last year stepped in and basically was the rector of the cathedral and our campus chaplain because we didn't have a chaplain. Uh-huh. This year, Bishop Lopes gave us a full-time chaplain, so we have a full-time chaplain here. For the daily mass, we have, Our Lady of Walsingham already has Monday through Wednesday, 10 a.m. mass and a 12 p.m. mass. Uh-huh. Now we have an 8:05 Monday through Friday. Monday through Wednesday, they also have the 10 and the 12. So the same amount of clergy are just doing 5 extra masses.
Wow. Because
Cathedral High School exists.
Yeah.
But everybody here believes in what we're doing. And so they're putting in the work, they're putting in the time, they're putting in the prayer to make it work, And it really is beautiful to see because it's possible. I think sometimes we shy away from really going for it because we're not sure.
Yeah.
But, we're seeing it. We're witnessing it. It is possible. And I think what we're offering is going to be invaluable to the students that go here and the families. We're creating a culture. Part of our mission is to create Catholic culture here that will impact Catholic culture everywhere, right?
Yeah.
We're creating a culture where parents are just being allowed to do what they want to do. Catholic parents already want the best for their kids. They want their kids to know the Lord. They want their kids to practice their faith. They don't want them to get swept away by technology or by whatever is happening in the culture. The different types of things you see in the news or the different ideologies that are being kind of tossed around and made to seem attractive to students. We want them to know how to think about all these things so they can make decisions based on what God tells us, not just what we're hearing in the news.
Yeah, or what's, in style or in vogue at the time.
Right. And, does somebody have to be Catholic to go to our school? No, they don't have to be Catholic. We've had some non-Catholics that have toured, that have, they're putting in applications for next year. We're excited to welcome those that, even if you're not Catholic, if you agree with what we're doing, if you agree with what we're teaching, you can come here and learn. You can learn everything that we have to offer through our curriculum and to learn about the church, at the same time. You can still participate in Mass, not to this full extent, right? But you can still come every day and worship. And so it's really, it's been a blessing to be here and see all the different people that are just putting in their work.
And what's the website again?
It's cathedralhouston.org.
Yep. Okay. Thank you so much for, allowing us to come in and, having us tour your facility. It's awesome. Herman and I were just talking about it while we were walking around. Like, this is great. This is fantastic. And you could see the kids with smiles and everything. That's fantastic.
Yeah. No,
Thank you so much.
Nice place.
We wish you all the best of luck. God bless you.
Thank you.